Good evening, fellow TFAers. It is the Week 13 Waivers and Stream Show, your first look at it. Luckily, this week we do not have a lot of major injuries outside of DJ Moore. Seems to be the speculative thinking on a lot of the Twitter doctors and PTs and that sort of thing. Is worst case scenario is a ruptured Achilles. Teddy Bridgewater had an injury, not sure the extent of that, and then Philip Lindsay tweaked his knee, according to Fangio, and we don't know the extent or severity of that either. There were some other defensive injuries, like Jacksonville. Just if you're watching that game, man, you just got to feel bad for that team. Just absolutely decimated with injuries. So we're gonna jump into it and just we're just gonna get right into the streams first. Kev, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the quarterback streams for Week 13?
Yeah, I mean, the list doesn't look insanely different than what it did last week, really. But we really start off with Ryan Fitzpatrick. It looks like Tua is probably going to be out for multiple weeks with this thumb injury that he has. They get Cincinnati this week. There's no reason to rush him back. They did win this week against the Jets. But Fitzpatrick looked a lot like Fitzpatrick. Completed 24 of 39 passes for 260 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was good news for Devontae Parker, who, without Preston Williams and, saw a team high 14 targets, and both scores went to Mike Gesicki inside the red zone. But this week they get a Cincinnati defense that has been torched all year. I mean, we saw Daniel Jones today playing really well before he got hurt. That's actually an injury that we're going to have to monitor as well with Daniel Jones. He left that game, and Colt McCoy had to finish that game. So we'll see what's going on there. It looked like some sort of a knee injury. I don't think it's like an ACL, but I mean, it could be something like MCL or whatever. So we'll have to see on that. But no, I don't think a lot of people were too worried about playing Daniel Jones. But I do think the Giants do get Seattle this week. I believe this upcoming week, which would have been a good matchup for him. Regardless, we'll have to wait on that. But the Dolphins, like I said, get Cincinnati, who ranked 28th in pass DVOA, 23rd in run DVOA. They've also tied for the most touchdowns allowed to the opposing quarterbacks as well. So there's a lot to like with this matchup going against Cincinnati. So I do like Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think he's a go for again next week. And Ryan Fitzpatrick has really played well all year for the most part as a fantasy quarterback. Like, he always provides fantasy goodness. So I do like Ryan Fitzpatrick. Taysom Hill is rostered in like 60% of leagues. So I'll have to see, for a lot of people, he won't be there. But I think some people dropped him this week because of the fact that he lost the tight end eligibility. And he also was going against a Denver defense that is pretty good. So this week, though, they come back and they get Atlanta again, which we've already seen this matchup once. But this week, Taysom Hill completed 9 of 16 passes for 78 yards, rushed for 44 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. And a true Tim Tebow-like game was pretty much what this was. The Saints handled this game from start to finish, with no quarterbacks out there for Denver, which was just ridiculous. And shocker, Kendall Hinton didn't do a motherfucking thing. So not that really shocks anybody, but that's what happened. So, the last time that they faced, which was week 11, Taysom Hill did throw for 230 yards and also had 2 more rushing touchdowns. Falcons are 23rd in pass DVOA. They're 10th in rush DVOA. They continue to do really well. And their defense has actually started to look better and better every single week. The Falcons absolutely crushed the Raiders today. So, and I will say the Falcons also allowed the most fantasy points to the quarterback position as well. So, I think Taysom Hill, I think you can go back there again for another week. I do believe they said that Drew Brees is expected to return week 15. So, I think you can at least look to play him for at least this upcoming week with Taysom Hill. Next up is Kirk Cousins, who once again played really well today. They ended up coming back and getting a late victory, completed 34 of 45 passes for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's now scored 20 fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games, and will face the Jaguars defense that's 30th in pass DVOA and 20th in rush DVOA. They've also allowed the 3rd most fantasy points and the 2nd most touchdowns to the position. But the biggest concern with Kirk Cousins is always the same thing, right? Is game script. Like, if they're in a negative game script, that is when it's really good for Kirk Cousins. And Kirk Cousins is like a low-end QB1 when that happens. I mean, he did that today without Irv Smith, without Adam Thielen. I think you could probably expect Adam Thielen to return this next week. So they will get them back as well. But, if the Jaguars can do what they did today against the Browns and at least keep the game close. I mean, Mike Glennon played better than I thought he was going to. I think he threw for like 240 yards and 2 touchdowns. But if they can keep it at least close, I do think that spells good things for Kirk Cousins. And I think at the very least, he's like a high-end QB2 this week. Next up is Derek Carr. It is really fucking hard to trust Derek Carr at this point, right? He comes off a great game against Kansas City, and then he follows that up a game against Atlanta and absolutely shits the bed today. And what was a great matchup, against Atlanta. Atlanta's pass defense can be had, but Carr, completed 22 of 34 passes for 215 yards. He had one interception. I believe he also fumbled the ball. The Raiders just turned it over way too much, but the Raiders, this week get the Jets, who are 30th in pass DVOA, 9th in rush DVOA. Very similar matchup here, against a team. Now, obviously, the Jets do not have the offense that the Falcons have and some of the weapons that they do have. But regardless of that, this is another great matchup for Derek Carr. So if you're desperate, Derek Carr is somebody I think you can go to, barring, if you can get past what he just came off of this past week. So I think a lot of people aren't going to want to go to him. Next up is Mitchell Trubisky, which they're playing right now. I think this Bears offense has looked better with Mitchell Trubisky. He has made some mistakes. He did throw the deep interception, and he also fumbled, but right before halftime, he did get that touchdown. But it is a good matchup against Detroit. Past that, Phillip Rivers continues to kind of be that floor play quarterback. Completed 24 of 42 passes for 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an absolute beatdown by the Titans and Derrick Henry. So the Colts will take on the Texans this week, and the Texans are 24th in pass DVOA, 30th in rush DVOA, and the Texans have allowed the 12th most points to position. So I don't think this is a real ceiling game. I don't think this Phillip Rivers is somebody that you're going to want to plug in there and expect to get like a high-end QB1 or anything like that. But I think at the very least, you could probably expect 18 to 20 from him. And, depending on what else is out there, like I don't hate Phillip Rivers. And then Baker Mayfield, again, threw for 260 yards, 2 touchdowns. He really could have had a better day because he missed a wide open Rashard Higgins. I don't know how he missed him. Wide open. Terrible throw by Baker Mayfield. But the Titans have been terrible along the defense. They do not get any pressure on the quarterback. They're ranked 25th in pass DVOA, 20th in run DVOA, and they've allowed the 10th most fantasy points to position. So I do think, if again, in a pinch, I think Baker Mayfield makes a little bit of sense. We saw Jarvis Landry smash today, have a really good game, which is something that we've been kind of looking for. But the Browns have had some of that rough weather, so they really haven't opened up the offense. I didn't expect the Browns to throw as much as they did today, to be honest with you. Really, I felt like this is a game that they were probably going to come in and, run the ball 45 times, but, it didn't happen. So, Baker Mayfield, came through today, was a decent fantasy option. So, and again, next week, I think in a matchup that they're going to have to throw the ball against Tennessee, I think Baker Mayfield is somebody that you can look at too.
The most telling thing about that wide open pass that Baker missed was the fact that Higgins was just wide open, like literally the entire time. And then you see like Mayfield clutch, and then he finally lets it rip. And not great, Bob. Just completely missed him wide open in the middle of the end zone. We're going to go ahead and keep things rolling here. We're just going to jump over to the top tight end streams for week 13. Kind of like Kevin was saying with quarterback, there's a lot of the same names here for tight end as well. One I did leave off the list that should be on here if you were watching live on YouTube and not listening to this. I did leave Jordan Reed off of here. Forgot to add him from my list. I think if you're desperate, I think he is in play if you have to go there. Hopefully you don't. But he does have 6 targets in back-to-back games. Other than that, like I said, a bunch of the same names here from last week. Robert Tonyan, listen, he's tied to Aaron Rodgers, and that's as far as the tight end position goes with what we have left. That's one of the best things that we can truthfully, honestly hope for. Will Dissly, we're still not sure how this is going to look, obviously, because they are playing tomorrow night. But with Greg Olsen missing at least a couple of weeks, if not the rest of the season, he's in play. He's been leading the tight end room in snaps and routes by far over Jacob Hollister. So I think you can look there. Jordan Akins, he did not have a great game after going. I think it was like 5 for 63 the week before. I think he put up a big old gooser for you, but that's the silver lining here is that no tight end did anything. That was just the Duke and wide receiver show on Thursday night on Thanksgiving. So I think you can go back to look at him just because of how thin the waiver wire is for tight ends. Dalton Schultz out here as well. Again, like just gross names. Schultz is averaging 6 targets per game, though. I think Kyle Rudolph is in play, particularly if Irv Smith were to miss. Kyle Rudolph actually had himself a solid game, and then Logan Thomas always just here. He's leading tight ends in routes run, but the production simply isn't there. He saved his fantasy day if you were forced to play him on Thursday by scoring that touchdown. But other than that, he went 4 for 20. So again, not great. Hopefully you have your tight end already set if you're heading into the playoffs. Tonyan is the guy that I would be adding here, and then after that, I think you can look at Akins and Disley. But hopefully, like I said, you're already set. You don't have to look to the waivers for streaming options going forward.
Yeah, and if you look at it though, I will say Jordan Akins had a touchdown in his hands, but he got knocked out at the last second. So he almost came through. And then Dalton Schultz, I do like Dalton Schultz a little bit. Like he is continually seeing targets. And with Andy Dalton and this offense looking a little bit better, I think that Dalton Schultz is somebody that I think could be like a low end tight end one remaining of the rest of the season. So I don't hate Dalton Schultz. And then Logan Thomas, I think leads the league or leads the NFL in the most weeks on the waiver wire because he continues every single week to be a guy that people like, hey, you could play Logan Thomas this week, but here we are.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's gross. Hopefully, you have your tight end situation figured out, and you don't have to look here. Just and if you do, pinch your nose and just don't look at your tight end points that week would be my recommendation. But we'll go ahead and we're going to keep things moving on here. Let's head over to something that might be a little more exciting to talk about, and let's touch on running backs. Kev, what do you have here for the folks?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of the same, right? J.K. Dobbins, which I think a lot of people were running to add, and then all of a sudden we found out he was on COVID, so people started dropping him in because he's still only rostered in 50% of leagues on ESPN, and on Yahoo, I think he's like 61%. So the good news is that he didn't test positive for COVID. He was a contact, so that means he should be back. I would assume they play Monday night, I think against Detroit or against Dallas, right? Because they moved that game. They were the Thursday night game, so they moved that game to Monday. So he should be back, and that is a great matchup to start to come back from for that Monday game against Dallas at like 4 p.m. Eastern time, which is ridiculous, but whatever.
So stupid.
Anyway, so if J.K. Dobbins is out there, if somebody dropped him, I think J.K. Dobbins should be somebody you definitely want to add because, like I said, for a lot of these guys, this is probably only a 1-week deal. We'll still wait and see if this game happens on Tuesday. I believe that it will. Cam Akers, it is the most frustrating thing in the world with Cam Akers, right? Because he clearly is the best running back they have. Today, he rushed 9 for 84 and a touchdown. A lot of that bulk of that came on the one run. It was a 61-yard run, but the rest of the running backs did nothing. Like Darrell Henderson, 10 for 19. Malcolm Brown, 3 for 4, had 2 receptions at 15 yards. It's just frustrating. Like Sean McVay, just give the fucking ball to Cam Akers. He's clearly, whenever you sat here and I've watched him for the last 2 or 3 weeks, he's clearly the best running back they have. And it's not close. And so, anyways, I think Cam Akers is only rostered in 28% of leagues. I definitely want him there. I think hopefully moving forward, they continue to give him more opportunities because he's definitely the best running back they have in that backfield. So if Cam Akers is available, I don't mind going there. James White didn't do a ton, but he did find the end zone twice. He carried the ball 5 times for 18 yards, only had 1 reception on 1 target, which is wild because I think 2 of the last 3 games he had at least 5 receptions. So, but he did come through with 2 touchdowns, so he played them, and I do think he has some flex appeal against the Chargers this week. So if you want to play James White, I think you can do that. Tier 2, Benny Snell, we'll have to wait and see because with James Conner going on the COVID list, if he is forced to miss next week, then Benny Snell, or if Benny Snell is sitting out there and you have some way to get him into your lineup or add him, I would be doing so because even if you are not playing him this week, I think he could be an option again next week. So we'll see with Benny Snell, but I think he's worth an add. Latavius Murray, look, 19 carries today, 123 rushing yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's now has 31 carries over Taysom Hill's 2 starts. Listen, like, it sucks because, like, Alvin Kamara is kind of like dead right now. Like, they're not throwing the ball to him because Taysom Hill's not looking to run. They are just looking to pound the rock over and over and over again. And they're really kind of using Taysom Hill a lot like Tim Tebow was used, right? And so that is killing Alvin Kamara because he's not seeing the pass catching volume. And if he's not going to see that, and they're using Latavius Murray as far more, then I think that's a big problem, right? And so Latavius Murray next week, I think, is a low-end RB2, high-end RB3 against the Falcons because they're going to continue to do what they've been doing. And I think Latavius Murray could end up seeing 15 to 20 touches in that game. I know it's super tilting, as an Alvin Kamara owner who, as the guy goes out today and does absolutely nothing. But I think this is not simply a 1 week thing. Now we have 2 weeks of an example of this. This is what the Saints are looking to do. And so right now, it really, really hurts Alvin Kamara's upside right now. Now, could things change? Of course. But as of right now, I think Latavius Murray at worst is an RB3 next week against the Falcons. And then these other guys I put on here was a lot like we talked about at the end of the show today. Like, this is the time to be adding these guys. Devontae Booker, Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard, Jamal Williams. All those guys should be rostered in 100% of leagues. If any of them are available, add them, because if this is the time, if something happens to one of the starters, this is when you win a championship off one of these guys. There's no more letting those guys hang out there. And what happens is most fucking people want to wait until they pop, wait until they do something. And then whenever they do, then they're out there rushing and hoping they have a high waiver priority or they have a lot of fab. If you don't, be proactive and start adding these guys to your bench and get rid of all these guys that you're never going to start, because all we're looking for now is the golden ticket. We have 1 more week until the fantasy playoffs start. So it is time to get aggressive and start adding these guys and screw the rest of your bench. You should not have 2 quarterbacks. I don't care if you have 2 high-level quarterbacks. Get rid of one of them. You don't need them. If you're not going to play him, get rid of the guy. You shouldn't have multiple tight ends. You shouldn't have multiple defenses, and you damn sure should never have 2 kickers. But with that said, all those guys deserve to be added. I think Boston Scott could probably go on that list. Jordan Wilkins is a secondary guy. He didn't really do a whole lot today to Nyheim Hines. There's a chance that Jonathan Taylor could return this upcoming week. Anyways, Ito Smith, which we called it with Brian Hill, right? That Brian Hill is somebody that you really probably aren't going to want to play unless you're desperate, because Brian Hill is a fucking Brian Hill. And once again, all the hype went around Brian Hill this week, and Brian Hill did a fucking thing. And Ito Smith is the one who ended up getting into the end zone, scoring a touchdown at the end.
Yep.
And these other guys, Frank Gore, I can't play Frank Gore. I can't ever bring myself to play Frank Gore. But like, he's kind of a floor play, or maybe he gets you 8 to 10 fantasy points, but he has no upside whatsoever. And then Kerryon Johnson, I think DeAndre Swift is back this week, so that pretty much Kerryon's just more of a handcuff. And then Jeremy Nichols, I think, would be the guy if something happened to Derrick Henry.
I'm surprised you even got yourself to type out Frank Gore's name to have him on that list.
Well, it was really tough. I'm not going to lie to you. It was really tough for me to even have him on the list, because I hate putting these guys on there because it's like a roster clogger. But he has he has no ceiling whatsoever. His ceiling's like 15 points, 12 points. But without LaMichael Pirine on the offense, he's going to be the guy.
Yeah. Just really quick on your point about the handcuffs and adding these guys now. This was almost Alexander Madison week. Dalvin Cook left that game. He had to be helped off by the trainers. He was barely able to put any weight on that one leg. Did not look good. Went into the tent. He ended up coming out and ultimately ended up coming back into that game. Like you were saying, Kev, if you would have already had Madison on your roster, that is the golden ticket right there. If Dalvin Cook would have had a serious injury, we know what his injury history is. He should be added. And the crazy thing is I think he is the most widely available out of all those guys in tier 2, which does not make any sense to me considering his injury history. So if these guys are available, like Kev said, go get them and go get them now. Don't wait until an injury happens or one of those guys pop off. So let's finish things off with the top wide receiver ads for week 13. Again, a lot of the same names from last week, but a lot of these guys are still relatively available. Michael Pittman and Corey Davis, both sitting there around that 50% ownership level. You have to add those guys, get them in your lineups. Don't fret over Michael Pittman with his, I think he had what, like 4 PPR points today, but he did see 9 targets, which was still good for a 21% target share, and I think that was second only to Naheem Hines, who had 10, I believe. So the targets are still coming for Pittman. It just didn't get there on the box score and on the stat sheet this week. Corey Davis hit double-digit points again, and the Titans do have the fifth easiest passing schedule from weeks 13 to 16. Again, those are going to be ones that are available in 10-team leagues, probably 12-team. I would not assume that those guys are available, but if for whatever reason they are still sitting out there in your waivers, go and snag them. Gabe Davis, I throw in here with the news of John Brown hitting IR. Gabe Davis was second today in targets with tied with Cole Beasley, obviously behind Stephon Diggs. And Gabe Davis does have 70 yards and a score in 2 of his last 3 games. If you were paying attention to anything we were doing during the offseason, during training camp, and you were following along with the threads that we were putting out on Twitter, literally you could not go a day without one of the Buffalo beat writers just hyping up Gabe Davis. Like literally every day was Gabe Davis Day during training camp. So that this as widely available as he is, this is not one of those like this isn't a point chasing thing. We know that Josh Allen's going to just throw the rock around all around the yard. So Gabe Davis, you can pick him up and feel pretty confident, even with him sitting. I think he's like rostered in like 1% of leagues right now. Jacoby Myers keeps doing his thing. We don't need to talk about him too much. It is a little thin because we never know what we're going to get out of Cam Newton. But he did have, I think he had double-digit PPR points again today. Sammy Watkins, he comes off of his injury in his first game back, and he was just jumped right back into his role. He was third in targets behind Hill and Kelsey, and he actually does have 7 catches in 4 of his 6 games played, and he's tied to Patrick Mahomes. I really don't think we need to say too much else there. Jalen Reagor, I mean, we're all just praying and hoping and waiting for the Jalen Reagor breakout week. Definitely need to add him. He's still widely available. Tier 2, Cole Beasley. If you played him and you're looking at your fantasy points, you might feel okay about it. But he actually got there today through a touchdown pass to Gabe Davis. But I was a little bit worried with his matchup that he had today, and that kind of I'm not entirely sure how much Chris Harris lined up against him or shadowed him, but he only had 2 catches today for like 20 something yards, I believe. But I think better days are ahead for Cole Beasley. Denzel Mims, Brashad Perriman. I was surprised with how much they were targeted today. I thought it was going to be the Jamison Crowder day. They actually both outproduced Jamison Crowder. So if we're going to get more of Sam Darnold taking these shots, which like I said, I didn't think we were going to get, especially today against Miami, their outside corners, you can look to add them for kind of boom bust options. Same thing with Lazard and MBS. I'm not sure what the targets are sitting at right now, but Lazard was second on targets going into halftime behind Devontae Adams. He did have, I think he has 4 targets. He had the touchdown as well there. Nelson Aguilar, another kind of boom bust option. Today he actually showed a little bit of a floor when he went 5 for 50, despite Derek Carr and that entire offense just not able to really get anything going. We had a couple of questions on him just with the touchdown upside. Obviously, he didn't get there today with the touchdown, but again, 5 for 54. If you played him in a full PPR league, I think you're okay with that. Last 2 here, KJ Hamler, Tim Patrick, and then Kiki Cootie. I think if you're in deeper leagues and 14, 16 team leagues, or if you're just in a league where you have a bunch, maybe an extra flex or 2, I think you can look there. Hopefully, better days are ahead for the Denver passing offense. With hopefully they're not relying on a practice squad wide receiver. Hopefully, they don't have to deal with that again throughout the rest of the year. So that is it as far as the waivers go. Kev, anything else you want to? Yep, the Pugmaster coming through again. We had the question this morning on the Game Day show about playing Hinton in the wide receiver spot over A Rob, and told him not to do it, and MJ listened. He's thankful. So, anything else you want to get off your chest here?
I was just gonna say Robert Tonyan just scored a 40-yard touchdown. So good for the waivers if he's out there to add. So, but no, we have one more week left. This is it for most people to make it to the playoffs. So if you're on that borderline, tune in to the shows this week, and we will help you out and hopefully get you into the playoffs so we can all win championships this year and all have a great Christmas and by winning championships, because that is the goal of this show. And you can hopefully subscribe, and you hopefully hit that like and subscribe button, and especially that thumbs up, because it helps us grow and it helps us tells YouTube that people like what we're saying. So I know you come here for the good looks, but what can I say? We're also give out some decent fantasy advice.
We're not just pieces of man meat here. All right, not. If we get to 800 subs by the end of the year, we'll do a shirtless show, because we know that's what the people are really here for. I know they've been waiting for us. They think every week they tune in, we're finally going to be like scantily clad and clothed, but we're trying to have you guys come here for our brains and not just these beautiful looks. So, like Kev said, smash that subscribe button, hit us with a thumbs up, follow us across all social media platforms. And we will be going live again on Wednesday to start over for Week 13 and get you guys ready for the playoffs. So until then, hope you guys have a good week, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.